Welcome to Civil War Digital Digest. I'm Will. We always talk about connection being a big thing in the Civil War, and today I want to bring you here to the Addressing Gettysburg studios. We're going to talk with Matt Callery about what he does to help you find a connection to history. Before we get going, in order to travel like this, it takes money, and we say thanks to our patrons, the CWDD Coffee Grinders, and I'm going to say thanks to Matt because he's one of them. That money, a little bit from everybody each month as it fits them, allows us to continue with our mission to bring you great Civil War history. So I guess, Matt, first, thanks, and thanks for the welcome.
Thanks for asking me to do this.
Cool. Well, let's start at the beginning. Where does Addressing Gettysburg come from?
It comes from a couple of things. My desire to make a living in mass communication, my lack of willingness to try to break into the established forms of mass communication, and my frustration with the way history has been presented to the public throughout my lifetime, at least.
Great. Well, let's hit people who don't know, because the reason I wanted to bring you on Civil War Digital Digest, beyond Turnabout is Fair Play, you having had me and Andy on about a year ago on Addressing Gettysburg. What is Addressing Gettysburg?
It's a lot of things. Mainly it's a podcast. That's at the core. And from that podcast, we were able to start doing free tours around the battlefield during the nice months. We started a second show which deals with Gettysburg today and the businesses that you have to visit and patronize when you come here on your vacation to Gettysburg. And also it's just kind of a way for us to blow off steam, because talking about death and maiming all the time is really depressing. So we have a lot of fun on that show too, which a lot of history people don't particularly care for, but I don't care. And we're using Gettysburg as a springboard to study at first the Civil War, and a little bit the 19th century, around this mid-19th century culture and things like that. But we're starting to expand out into general history now, because Gettysburg, there's only so much you can do.
And when you say general history, general Civil War history, or are you going wider?
Wider. American, though. We're sticking with American history because, frankly, I don't like to fly, so I'd like to go places where I can take road trips to, and we can do videos based on, road trips, So we're looking to kind of get out, and we're still going to do Gettysburg. That's not going anywhere. We're just adding to it with something that we're calling Addressing History. That way, we're not pigeonholed into one particular subject.
Okay, so there's the Addressing Gettysburg podcast. What do you call the segments when you're just in town, outside of history, around Gettysburg in general?
That's called AG Today, and that's a live stream. Typically, it's every Thursday, but we've culled that down to once a month for the time being, while the weather's nice and I can get out there and shoot a lot of video footage.
Great,
yeah.
Great. So, and we've got Addressing History. There's a lot of stuff going on here. It's pretty incredible, because I know what it takes to bring something out every 2 weeks, and there's a lot here.
Yeah, I think I'm insane, and therefore, because I'm really the only one that does it. Like I have that people around me.
You can say that leads me to the question, because you keep saying we and we have a
team.
It's
the royal we.
Okay, me, myself, and I.
Mm-hmm. Well, me, myself, and I, and the listeners. Like, I consider the listeners part of the show. And this is going into what I was saying in the first question, where this comes out of my frustration with how history has been done. I think that the one thing that's always lacking, whether you go to a lecture or any kind of event at some museum or something like that, the one thing that is lacking is an interest from the historians in the audience. And I think the audience has a lot to say. Our friend Peter Carmichael, who passed away last year, he and I always used to get in these arguments, fun arguments, about whether I'm a historian. And my argument was, I'm not a historian, because I don't have the bona fides to be a historian. I went to school for it, but I never graduated. I dropped out. So I have no degree that says you should listen to me about history at all. I don't work in any institution that would, dub me a historian or an historian. And I think my argument to him was, Pete, if I'm a historian, then you're not, because you have a PhD, and if you're saying I'm a historian too, then you're just diluting your accomplishments, and I don't agree with that. But since he passed away, I've been thinking about him a lot in our conversations and the lessons I learned from him, and even though I disagree, still, I think I'm going to try his theory. And so we've kind of changed the way we're doing our show, where we want more audience participation, because according to Pete, they're historians too. And it's playing out that way, because I've found when we've done a few events with an audience and we include them from the beginning all the way to the end, they have a lot of thoughts and they have a lot of ideas, and they have a pretty firm understanding and analysis of things. And I know that some of the historians I had sitting next to me were quite impressed with them. And so I think, like, I meandered in that answer, but I think that there's the audience is definitely part of it. So when I say we, that's where it was. When I say we, I'm talking about them. Like,
it's interesting you say that, because I've got a degree in what I jokingly tell people is applied history. My degree is political theory and constitutional democracy, but I'm with you. I don't take myself as a historian. I take myself as somebody who is a storyteller professionally,
Yes.
and who can help professional historians have a vehicle. But at the end of the day, for me, history is just the story of us.
Yeah.
And so the more of us we have in a conversation, I think the richer it is.
I completely agree with you, and that's a great way to put it. It's the story of us, which was a good series on the History Channel, but it is. That's why it was such a good title, because that's what it is. Mm-hmm. It is the story of us. It's how we got to where we are. It's how we have everything we have around us, good and bad, and we're all affected by history, whether we know it or not, or care or not. And so, yeah, why not include people in the discussion about history? Also, I think, when I started doing this, I had one friend from my youth in mind. And he would always, when me and the two other guys in our group of four would get in on a riff about something, historic, he would, he goes, history's so boring. That used to frustrate me, because it wasn't boring. It's very interesting. It's very exciting. It can be heart-pounding if you have an imagination.
I held the sword not an hour ago of a man from the 7th Michigan, from my home state, who would earn the Medal of Honor, most likely carrying that sword.
Yeah. Was he here when he was in the 7th?
I don't know if he was still here. The Medal of Honor comes from Gaines Mill in 1862.
7th Michigan Cavalry?
7th Michigan Infantry.
Oh, infantry.
So,
okay.
So were he here and not sick? I haven't tracked him through Gettysburg, but he'd have been on the wall.
Yeah.
He'd have been under Norman Hall's brigade at the wall.
Yeah.
So
still, that's so cool.
And so, how does that not become? So it's how we tell it. If we sanitize it too far or make it too cold.
I completely agree. We used to, when I started, I used to have T-shirts that said, "History is not boring, your teachers were." But then all the teachers in the audience got upset, and they're like, "I'm a teacher and I'm not boring." And I go, no, you're missing the point. I'm not saying teachers are boring. And what really bugs me is there's a guy on Instagram who started his channel maybe 2 years ago. And that's the phrase he uses. I came to the audience and I took it off, and then this guy, I'm not saying he got it from me.
No.
But he uses it because it's the same idea.
Sure.
But it's what you're saying. It's the way it's presented to you.
I think that goes back to the fact that we say there's only 7 stories in the world. There's not a lot of new ideas. It's how we spin it, or how we take it and make it one click differently.
Yeah, and also the personality attached to it. Because there's a lot of people who do what Gary Edelman does. But nobody does it like Gary Edelman.
But I must say, this morning when I did a social media hit for Civil War Digital Digest, since I'm in Gettysburg, when in Rome, I made sure I grabbed a hat and had my hat on this morning.
There you go, of course.
And that was a complete homage to another Michigan State grad, Gary Edelman.
Yeah. Gary's personality is, first of all, the guy is a giant ball of energy. Actually, he's a small ball of energy. He's very thin, because he's got so much damn energy. He's always walking, right? All this flailing the arms and everything. Like, the guy is full of energy, and that is contagious. When you watch that, it's contagious, you know? And so the other people that do what he does, they don't get the traction that he gets online because they're phoning. That's not that they're phoning it in, but they don't have that it, and he has that it.
Yeah.
And so there's you're in show business. There's a bit of show business that needs to be incorporated with our history. Otherwise, you're going to just fall, into the corner, and nobody's going to ever notice you.
Storytelling. It's the same reason that when I did Whitney's Medal, not only did I need a director's sample to get to direct network television, but I also wanted to tell William Whitney's Medal of Honor story as a story.
Yeah. And it probably was pretty good. I haven't seen it, but it probably
it's on History Fix, so you'll be able to get a chance to take a look at it. So, and it's a whopping 8 minutes long.
Yeah,
but it's his story there told as a story.
Right, and that's what you need to do. I think the problem is that people look at history almost with a religiosity, like a religious reverence. I think we should have a reverence for the stories of the people who came before us, because we are who we are because of them. But to deify them, I think, is a little absurd. And in doing so, look, I grew up Catholic. The most dreaded day of the week was Sunday, because I had to sit through that boring mass, right? And a lot of times I get that same feeling sitting at a lecture, and I love the subject, right? But I get the feeling that I'm in church and I'm listening to a sermon, and this is nothing against the historians who are presenting these things. I'm thinking from the perspective of trying to not preach to the choir, but convert the masses. How do I get the people walking by the church to come in and join us? And in order to do that, you can't keep going in Latin. You know what I mean?
It's one of the reasons that we keep Civil War Digital Digest totally PG. We have one episode here that is a whiskey recipe, and then we went, wait a second, so you don't see prostitution in the Civil War, you don't see cool pipes, you don't see how do you make tobacco, you don't see mixed drinks here. We've done a mixed drink series, and that's at History Fix as an exclusive series.
Right.
But I want a teacher or a grandfather or a friend to be comfortable to hand that young kid who was me when I was 8.
Yeah.
Give them their first chance and be part of that conversation.
And that's why, we try to not curse. And we do a pretty good job. The worst that we'll say is shit, right? And if ever I know I'm going to say an F-bomb, I have the bleep button right here, and I'm waiting for it.
I have to go back and edit it in. I'm jealous. You've got a button over
there. You got to get this mixer. It's great. It's got a button built in. But it's for that same reason. I want someone to feel comfortable playing it for their kids. Because, look, you and I, we're already interested in it, right?
Yep.
Other people our age, already interested in it. Older people, already interested in it. I don't care about getting an older person interested in history. They're going to come to it on their own.
Yep.
The younger people, that's where I'm concerned about, this dying with us. And so my focus now is shifting towards, now that I have a core audience, I'm kind of enlisting them to help me try to reach the younger people, and that includes me recruiting some younger people who know how to speak to their own kind, because I don't know how to speak to them. I'm just this old bald guy, right? So and I would look pathetic trying to be cool and use their slang and all that. I don't know that stuff.
Let me just be me.
Yeah, let me be me. And me is based on people I was influenced who are mostly dead. So it's, in other words, my personality for doing this type of thing is modeled after people who, like Carson and Dean Martin, these old guys who are all gone, or Howard Stern, who's, on his way out. But none of these people are relevant anymore. Right. And so it's foreign to them. Older people get it, and I think that's why my audience skews older, but also older people are interested in this.
Well, let's use this as a transition. We both use Patreon as a way, whether it's cameras and travel, whether it's this lovely studio, it helps underwrite us, but it's a certain level.
Yeah.
Let me use that as a transition. Tell me about Digital History Pioneer Foundation, and give me the right name there.
It's Digital History Pioneers Foundation. It was started by a listener of ours, Tim Day. And I guess I had been complaining a bit too much that I wanted to break into doing video, but my ideas, I can't allow myself to do, holding the cell phone. Hi, I'm here at whatever.
Yep.
It's fine for people who do it. I'm
Yep.
not saying it's bad. I'm saying it's not my style.
Yep.
And also, everybody does it.
Mm-hmm.
And also, nobody's interested in me. They're interested in the history. And so I want to make mini films or larger films. And I want the landscape and the words of the participants to tell the story. Sure, we'll use music and sound effects and things like that. But this isn't, believe it or not, this isn't an ego trip for me. Because again, I don't want to be known as a historian. I never had the desire. To me, it's about, here's a story that I love and I think you would find interesting too. So let me see if I can find the nut of it. Like, what is interesting about this story and how can I get that to come across on screen or in an audio only show or in a conversation during the podcast or whatever. Mm-hmm. How can I get across to you what it is that I find so interesting about this that I think you should at least consider thinking is interesting. So anyway, I was bitching that like all these ideas that I have require other people. And they, if they're good, require money.
Yep.
And now I make enough off of Patreon for me to live. Mm-hmm. Not
jealous.
Yeah.
Good for you. No. Good for you.
See, but here's the thing. This is why I say I'm insane. I don't think if you made what I made off of Patreon that you would quit your job. I find it reprehensible to work for somebody else. So the minute I was like, you know what, I could do without the income from this job and build the one that I have from Patreon, that's when I quit and I just made this my full-time job.
Good.
But I had to live a Spartan life still. And, I'm a little more comfortable now, but I'm not buying any yachts or anything. I'm not even chartering a yacht.
No.
So
plus, I'd have to go in the water.
Yeah, right. Where there's a lot of sharks, because who wants to go on a yacht on a cold stretch of water, right? You want to go to the Caribbean. Anyway, we're meandering. So, so Tim called me one day, and he said, he goes, listen, we need to figure out a way for you to make more money. And I go, yeah, no shit. And he says,
where's that button?
Yeah, sorry. I don't have it ready. He goes, yeah, no kidding. And I said, yeah, no kidding. And so I go, do you have any ideas? And he goes, well, sponsors. And I go, no, I already tried that. I couldn't keep track. This is the problem being CEO all the way down to janitor.
Yep.
Is you can't do everything. Everything is a full-time job. That's why you have full-time employees. But if you can't afford employees, then you have to do it, and you fail. So it got to the point where I couldn't keep track of who was out of contract. I couldn't keep track of who is behind on their payments, and I don't want to go chasing after people for a couple $100. So it was like, forget it. I'm not going to do that anymore. And so he goes, I have some experience with nonprofits. He's a lawyer. And he goes, I've started plenty for other people. I've been a part of a few myself. I sit on some boards. I have some businesses. And he goes, let me put one together for you, and we'll figure out a way to get donations and fund you that way. You'd apply for grants, and then, I was like, okay. I said, but the only caveat is I'm not on the board. I'm not a founder. I have nothing to do with it, because then it looks like I'm just trying to get a slush fund going or something, right? And I told him, I said, look, eventually we should open it up to other content creators like me, because maybe they need to hire an editor, maybe they have to get permits somewhere. And even though permits are, like in the park when you used to have to get a film permit, it's $100. It's not terrible.
But it adds up,
yes,
especially if you're scraping to make it by. It does add up.
So little things like that, We launched it a few months ago during the winter, and so far we've received some a number of small donations, and then recently an anonymous donor basically is funding a 4-show series that we're going to shoot over the summer and release during the winter.
Exciting to hear that.
Yeah, it is exciting to hear because now it's time for me to put up or shut up. Like, okay, you've got the money you want, now can you do it? But I think we can do it.
Great.
And there is a we with this one because I can hire people.
Well, let's bring this episode to a close. What have we missed that you want to talk about? What do you want to leave people with, other than listen to the Addressing Gettysburg podcast?
Obviously, that.
Yes.
Yeah. What do I want to leave people with? You mean when I die, or just at the end of this interview?
Just at the end.
Okay.
Let's keep it a little more limited.
Okay. It's easy to say what I want when I die, but I don't know. I think if you're one of these people who is lamenting the fact that schools don't teach history. I'm looking into the camera. I'm sorry. I know you told me not to, but I'm breaking the fourth wall. If you're saying, wah, nobody's teaching history in schools anymore, the young people aren't interested in history anymore, I submit to you that your donations that you've been giving to the previous ways of doing things might go a little further in the hands of someone who is newer, hungrier, and has those people, the younger people, and the schools in their sights as a target audience to get interested and involved in the study and exploration of American history, starting with the Civil War, but really going to all of it, because it is a very fascinating history that the United States has. It's, marred with ugliness, but find me a nation that isn't. I don't know any nation where everybody was making love to each other all the time.
No.
Especially one where two cultures clash in order to get the land.
Two?
Well,
yeah.
yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah, but no. So
in a general sense. But so that's what I would say. I would say, try to support not necessarily me, but maybe Will, or maybe somebody that Will and I haven't heard of. Doesn't matter. I think the future is in stuff like this. It's regular people creating content, sharing their passion and enthusiasm for history or whatever the case may be, whatever the subject is. And there's no filter. I think that's the important thing, Will. I think you might agree with me, even though we self-impose some filters on us.
You got the button there.
Yeah. I think we don't. I don't have a board. The money, the support that we get is because people like the way I do it. And what they like about it is it's kind of unvarnished and unfiltered.
Let me cut in on you there.
Yeah.
It's unvarnished, but we want it to be good and accurate as well.
Sure.
Talk to me about some of the people quickly that you work with to make sure that your sources are right, to make sure that you're telling not only a good story, but a good story you can stand behind.
Okay, so I'm glad you asked that because,
especially for us who call ourselves not historians.
Not historians, yeah. No, that's a great question. So I consider myself a host, right? Mm-hmm. I like to talk to people. I have a natural curiosity.
Sucker, I got you on the other side of the table this time.
Well, I like this too. I kind of prefer this, actually. It's nice to talk about yourself for a while. But I like to talk to people. I'm interested in people, but I also love a good story. Mm-hmm. And so if I can talk to an interesting person who's telling me a good story, I'm hooked. And if I can be hooked, then maybe the listener can be hooked too, right?
Yep.
So I use licensed battlefield guides here in Gettysburg. We also have, when we have authors on, who've written a book or something like that, they tend to be PhDs, it's through some university or whatever. But I'm very picky as to who I'll have on the show. That said, like I said before, we're starting to include the audience. And there are members of our audience who have reached out to me at various points and said, hey, my great-great-uncle was in, the 7th Tennessee. And I've done a lot of research on him and Archer's Brigade, and, can I come on and do a show about that? And I'd be like, you can, but I have to team you up with a licensed guide, because that's going to be in case you get something wrong, he or she can jump in and say, that's not it, this is it. And it's not to embarrass them, it's all in the interest of getting to the truth of the matter and trying to get an understanding of it. And so we don't mock people who get the wrong answer. There really is no such thing as a stupid question. Somebody who says to me, I have a stupid question, I'm more interested in that question, because it's usually a fundamental question that they have, because they're at the beginning of learning about everything.
I say it this way.
Yeah.
The only stupid question is the one you don't ask. Especially when I'm doing interpretation or public speaking.
Yeah.
Because if I can get that person to ask that first question, even if it says, is that fire hot? Is that wool warm? If we get an honest answer to that, questions 2 through 7,000 are just going to fly.
Yeah, and they're going to get better.
Yep.
Yeah, because they'll be more confident, or at least comfortable.
Both are huge words.
Yeah.
Confident, comfortable, and connection.
And yes, exactly. I think that is something that especially younger people are starving for. They don't know it yet, because they've been raised with the phone, and they don't have that human connection. But there are times I've seen where you could tell it was a foreign feeling to them, but they just had a human connection, and they're like, and they're like they're on fire. They come alive, and I love to see that. But so we have experts. I interview experts. Also, you can't put out the number of shows that I put out in a month and do it all yourself without a staff. And even with a staff, that's a lot. So I have to have experts come on. And I'll read like the Wikipedia version, not literally, but a summary of what we're talking about, to just kind of get an idea of the beginning, middle, and end of the story. And I'll just feed the guide questions or the expert questions, and they fill in the details. And it works.
And it, what I think is great is that, again, the story of us, the conversation, you're bringing more voices to history, because those licensed battlefield guides on the guide, on the field, rather, hit 3 people, 4 people, a bus of 30.
Yeah.
That's a great group for them.
Yeah.
But you and I both deal on the web, and we have more voices speaking to history, and I think that makes us richer.
Well, it does. I agree. And also, before I did this show, I worked with a lot of guides because I owned a tour company. And so I got to know them and go out on the tours with them, and I'm like, these guys are great. And I see how they engage with the public, and I see how they get that kid who didn't want to be there, who's hot and he just wants to go in the pool, and he's mad because dad dragged him down to this boring history thing. And I see that kid suddenly snap to because there's something that caught his ear, and now he's hooked. And by the end, he wants to go and get the souvenir hat and the toy musket and everything, and he's hooked on this.
Do you still have yours?
Of course I do.
I've still got my, I actually drilled the end, so it's got a short ramrod on the front that's just a double drilled
cool,
in.
yeah.
Because you can't have a musket without a ramrod.
Of course not.
Paris completely screwed that up, but mine's pre-orange tip.
But mine is too.
White hair.
Yeah. No, Paris was great. They had the coolest historical replicas.
It got you in the zip code, and it helped imagination.
It did. It was fantastic. Mine was also pre-orange tip, and I think it's at my mom's still, something like that. I don't have it with me. But anyway, to wrap it up, I think history now needs to be more, if it's going to live, it needs to be more democratized. And unfortunately, you have to have the face of your organization be somebody with a personality that is going to appeal to people. And there's nothing wrong with infusing humor with it. Now, and the thing is, like, I'm sure a lot of people hearing that are like, oh, well, it's easy for you to say because you're, a clown. It's like, yeah, it is easy for me to say because I'm a clown. But there's other clowns out there who like history, who would be more than happy to be the face of your organization.
Yep, and my humor is so dry, the Brits will laugh at it, but the Americans just don't.
Some of us like your humor. I get it.
Well, Matt, thanks for spending time. Thanks for welcoming me here. And I mean, I know Andy was with us yesterday when just sat and chewed the fat, and he said, hey, Will, go back, talk to Matt on camera.
Well, thank you, Andy. I appreciate that. Thank you, Andy. And this is a lot of fun. I love doing this.
Cool. Great. Well, gang, this is a lot more unvarnished than you see us. There's not a lot of still photos and B-roll and other stuff. It's just me and Matt talking in his native habitat. But let's talk about connection. Let's talk about how we get people to enjoy history, both ourselves and people who don't know they're going to love it yet. It is the story of us. Hope you enjoyed this conversation. We'll see you in a few weeks.